Welcome to Neurotypicals Don't Juggle Chainsaws, the podcast that cuts through the rubbish to explore the world of neurodiversity. I'm your host, Nick King.
And I'm your host, Kate Fox. And together we're here to explore, understand, and celebrate being neurodivergent in a neurotypical world. From ADHD and autism to dyslexia and other quirky brains, we talk about it all.
And go off on tangents. So whether you're neurodivergent, love someone who is, or you're just curious about neurodivergent minds, you are in the right place.
Let's get ready to juggle some words and maybe even a few chainsaws, metaphorically, of course.
Hello, welcome to Neurotypicals Don't Juggle Chainsaws. This week, particularly because it's Autism Acceptance Month in April, we want to talk about post-diagnosis and when you move from self-awareness to self-acceptance and what that might look like.
And it's a really interesting one for me because I could almost argue that 7 years post-diagnosis, I am only now in some crucial ways moving into acceptance, actually. Nick, where would you feel you are on the, if it's a spectrum, where we have spectrum, but if awareness to acceptance is a spectrum, where are you on it?
I think I am very, very firmly into acceptance and maybe active acceptance, if we can have acceptance plus.
Yes, I think we can and should have acceptance plus, because there's something in active acceptance that is, yes, that is just resonating with me because maybe that is where I have moved to after quite a while in acceptance. Now that is really interesting.
Maybe we should take a moment because it's April, and I want to take a moment to recognise that some autistic people and maybe even some of our listeners are triggered by April with it being autism. A lot of people say Autism Awareness Month. I use Autism Acceptance Month because I think, awareness campaigns historically have been modelled on diseases or illnesses or, there's a lot of poor history with Autism Acceptance Month and some very, very awful content that has been put out there. But I am definitely not putting awful content out there, and nor would we ever. And I think if you're going to listen to anyone during Autism Acceptance Month, listen to autistic people. And part of the reasons why I do Autism Acceptance Month is because I think we should listen to autistic people in that month. And if I'm not putting out some level of content for people to listen to that month and every month, then you're part of not giving a wider dialogue to what is an established thing.
I see. Yes. So you're kind of saying be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Actually, yeah,
partly.
Absolutely.
And also resist from within.
Yes.
Often, I think. So just as a primer then, for anyone who is coming into April, just going, April, it's when there's, I don't know, daffodils and Easter eggs and what? There's autism too. Is this formally the month that was, or might still be, where Light It Up Blue was one of the...
Yes, Light It Up Blue. So that's an Autism Speaks campaign, which is an American charity that does have links over here to other charities that are similar or associated. We don't do that. We know. And a lot of the problems with sort of the Light It Up Blue campaign is that blue is considered a gendered colour and that it is linked to boys. And that comes from a period where, we're talking about sort of boys being autistic. What you would see within my content is the infinity symbol. Mine, and then particularly in the Northeast, which is partly due to my lovely friend Kieran Rose and the Northeast Autism Society, they ran a Light It Up Gold campaign. So you will see the gold infinity symbol a lot more around this way. And also last week we had Neurodiversity Week, and they use a rainbow infinity symbol. And that's why there's lots of rainbows and there's lots of gold within like my business and brand and stuff like that, because I want to make it very, very clear that, you know, we are doing acceptance, and that it is we and not you and not them.
I see. Yes.
Yes.
It's almost making me think, you know, if I was a newly diagnosed person, and I have encountered this actually, newly diagnosed people kind of stepping a little toe in to the world of autism discourse and going, it's complicated, I don't get it, because they might see another symbol that's it's outdated and just doesn't connect the jigsaw piece, which I know used to come up in April quite a lot. A jigsaw piece as in, you're a puzzle, you've got a piece missing. Obviously that's deficit based, and is why rainbows and golden infinity symbols are far more positive and connected. But those symbols are still available, and there's still a sense of, where do I go? And actually what we're trying to say really is, well, ideally it will be beneficial for you to be in a space of true acceptance, not just awareness, because as a society we maybe should have moved past awareness, and half the time the awareness was wrong. We were aware of the wrong things.
The thing is, it's autism. I think everybody is now, particularly in the UK, hi international listeners, but everyone's aware of autism. We are aware. It's not like some sort of, I don't know, really rare genetic disease where I've had to go Google it. Do you know what I mean? We're not talking a couple of thousand people in the world. We're talking millions. Everybody's aware that there are autistic people out there.
Yes, but what we are lacking still is acceptance. So I'm going to think of an example of where I have either accepted myself or asked for acceptance. And I only, you know, my daily life is such at the moment that I don't have to look very far. This is not an advert. I am trapped in the universe of Apple and Mac. I have sold my soul to them. And that is because Macs and iPhones work for me. They integrate, they're simpler than the other things. And everything is integrated. I edit a document on one device, it comes up on all the other devices. It just works. But also the thought of leaving the Mac universe, it's not possible for me to do. Imagine the disruption. I say this while I'm looking at Nick on a Zoom screen, and a quarter of my screen is flickering and black. So basically my computer is dying. How is this relevant to autism acceptance, I hear you say? Well, I've got to get a new device. In the past, I would have been making my decisions based on solely cost, or what I should do, or maybe I should now break free from the Apple universe. Maybe I should be able to use just a Mac like everyone else. Actually, I've realised, you know what I need? I need an iPad with a pencil thing that I can write notes on. Because I've actually thought carefully about my needs and requirements, and realised, I could live the rest of my life with 200 notebooks in my office where I can never find any of the notes in them. I could do that. I probably will, realistically. But it's okay to actually work with myself and my needs, not against it. So acceptance has also involved taking a pause and a step back. And to be fair, having some awareness first of what some of my needs actually are. Awareness was a first step. Okay, what's going to work for me? And then I accept I'm going to have to do this on the basis of how I am, how I operate, how I process things. And that has to be front and centre for me. And I'm therefore going to do that. That is different, isn't it, to what is going to be in the mainstream discourse, which still involves, doesn't it still involve quite a lot of, I know we've talked about this before, supermarket quiet hours and relaxed cinema times. Yes, that's also quite.
Is it tokenistic? That's what it comes down to, isn't it? Is it tokenistic? And I think a lot of places, and I am not. I have genuinely thought a lot about a business, about whether I do, as my company, whether I do Autism Acceptance Month or not. Um, and I do other months. I do Neurodiversity Week. I do Children's Mental Health Week. I do Polar Bear Day and Panda Day because they have days too. I make sure I've always got something up for Pride Month because obviously most autistic people are also part of the LGBTQ community. So it's not like I just do April. But what I will tell you is that my stuff goes further in April. You know, my reach on my social media is further. My interaction with people who I don't normally interact with on social media is further. And in a weird way, and I've said this to other people, it's a bit like sort of, you know, trying to sell like Elf on the Shelf in February. You know, like realistically, I've got a product that I do want people to interact with, particularly schools. And schools love a bit of April. They really do. They want things that they can do to say they've done it. Now, does that mean some of my stuff is being used tokenistically? Possibly. But is it coming from a place of, you know, at least it's an autistic voice and at least I'm promoting acceptance in those young people?
This is really interesting. So I think there are two issues here, actually, then, separately. So one is around April and the public discourse around autism and where that is. And the other is our own or other people's post-diagnostic acceptance. Yes, they are slightly separate things. If you happened to be diagnosed in April, maybe it would be really good because you'd be like, oh, no, I've just been diagnosed. Everyone is geared up to accepting me and thinking about me and, you know, being connected to the needs of this community I am now part of. And that could be a really positive thing. But otherwise, actually, there is still quite a lot of public discourse in April that doesn't connect to the
actually autistic person.
Yeah, the actually autistic person and the complicated journey they're about to go on, no matter what their age, no matter what their situation, post-diagnostically. And I want to say it is a complicated journey. At the moment, just without even reference to myself, I'm thinking of people that I know. So I do know quite a lot of adults around my age, as many women as men, I suppose. This identity shift post-diagnostically, it's not linear, I have to say. It's not like, oh, today I was diagnosed. Hurrah, I accept my new identity. It's very much an oscillation, a really, really strong back and forth that has probably been going on for a long time, pre-diagnosis or self-identification, and then afterwards goes on for a long time. And just to draw these two things together, April, and what it means for public autism talk and for the individual journey, I'm wondering if in society what we actually have is a kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back around autism acceptance.
Yeah.
But April can be a month where there's an opportunity to kind of take a test of where the current public representation of autism actually is.
Yes.
We probably do see it progress actually year by year. It is different.
Yes.
Broader and has more actually autistic people speaking out in it. Although at the same time, it's also an opportunity to go, okay, there are some elements of this public representation where we sometimes seem to be taking steps backwards. And I'm going to say there's a little bit of a backlash possibly at the moment around diagnosis and around the idea of neurodiversity as an identity.
Yeah.
And we are definitely seeing, casually in a newspaper like the Telegraph or the Times, oh, everybody seems to be autistic and ADHD nowadays. Oof, what a waste of resources. That backlash. And that's happening in conjunction, almost in parallel, in opposition to, not coincidentally at the same time as April Autism Acceptance Month finally gets more progressive.
I do think you're right. I think it's a good place to take like a temperature of the social climate towards autistic people. And I think it's interesting to see how many people. I think when I first started thinking, when autism first came into my life, but back then April was jigsaw pieces. It might be a rainbow jigsaw piece with rainbow jigsaw pieces within it. It might not have been blue, but like it was still very much there. And I think, and you're right, no matter what point in your life you're getting diagnosed, it is an infinite journey because you have different times in your life. You have different times where you need to be kind to yourself in different ways, be that sort of like, through all sorts of life's events, through jobs and parenthood and divorce and all those things that you need to not just have awareness, but acceptance of yourself as an autistic individual through those events. And let's have a think. How can we top tips on how to be kind to yourself and move towards acceptance, maybe? What do you think?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's do it. Okay.
I think my first one's always boundaries. So since moving from being aware that I was autistic to accepting I was autistic, the main thing that I have done is I have started to say no more.
Oh, wow.
And people might not like that and they might think that's difficult, but realistically, I need to not burn out as regularly as I was. And I have accepted that the only way to do that is to sometimes make people unhappy, and say no. And no to things that take my time and take my spoons.
Yeah, that is huge, isn't it? I would have put that as absolutely number one as well. And I might have probably added language around, be aware of your limitations, be aware of your energy levels. And it is so hard for so many of us to do because we can not only feel like we're disappointing other people, we can also feel like we're missing out on things that we really want to do, actually. Yeah, okay, that's brilliant top tip, boundaries. Okay, another top tip for me would be, and I feel like this is this is a difficult one. I almost hesitate to say it because I'm like, oh, sorry, people, but it's this. Don't be afraid to be different. And actually, that can be hard because it's like, oh, but I just want to fit in. I am, in fact, like everyone else. In fact, isn't autism acceptance, Kate, understanding that it's not like we're a different species. Yeah, but realistically, that person over there who's just, I don't know what they've done. They've gone to a party and they haven't stood in the kitchen. They've, for the fun of it, just made small talk with random people in the dining room for ages. And then they've gone, I don't know what they've done. They've gone rock climbing with 10 people on purpose. And then they've and then they've sat with a family all in one room for 5 hours, just all talking to each other all the time in a very small room. Anyway, they've done all that. They're probably different to you. Realistically, they're different to you. And it's okay to say, oh, all those things, they're not me. They're actually not me. What I need to do is these other things. I'm really sorry, by the way, if you're an autistic person and I just described your ideal day. Sorry about that. But, in the likely event that wasn't your ideal day, that's okay. It is some people's ideal day. I've got much better at, I always was happy to stand out and be different in certain ways. I stand out in my clothing, sometimes in my hair, in the fact that I'm a poet, but it is still really difficult to own the fact, or can be difficult to own the fact of, this social requirement is not going to work for me in the way that it will work for you. Or maybe it's not, actually that bit's not difficult anymore. What's difficult is that other people still don't get it. Oh, here we are, we're coming to the number. I think it's all very well to have an entire month of autism acceptance, but we do feel, I think, many of us in those micro moments of, what, you really don't want to stand in the busy room and have a discussion about the thing where 10 other conversations are happening. Are you not able to do that? Do you not want to do that? No. But it's not that I don't want to, I just can't, because I can't auditorily and cognitively process in that instance. Oh, right, gosh, people are different, aren't they? They are. They actually are.
Okay, so another one, and I think this is probably one of the ones that I have started to do more recently, and that I think is because I now really predominantly work at home and I have a screen between myself and other people in the main. And that is open stimming.
Oh, sorry, calm down. Go on.
Got excited.
Yes.
So like not like subtle stimming, not a bit of sort of slight rocking forward on your chair or on your feet should you be standing, not like doing things under the table, not like I do a lot of finger tapping that I could do quite subtly. I'm talking about getting something that's bright orange spiky and sticking it in my mouth whilst I'm working.
Yes, yes. And actually, just before you said that, I had just noticed, just at that moment, I don't know if you'd had it in your hand for a while, it just registered your orange spiky thing. I was like, oh, and actually, do you know, interestingly, so I'll just share my thought process. I was like, oh, is Nick okay there? Because she's, having to regulate is actually what I thought. Oh, that's interesting. It just flashed across my mind quite quickly. And the reason I got excited when you said open stimming is I'm currently working on a new performance piece at the Alphabetic Theatre in Newcastle, so I basically have to just do a 20-minute excerpt of something. I've got a bit of time to play in the theatre, although the theatre is, in fact, a very ADHD space and not a very autism-friendly space. So mainly I play at home where it's nice and quiet. But then I'm going to take whatever I've made and share it. And I have been thinking, and I have not used this phrase, but open stimming is going to be a really important part of it. For me, I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to invite the audience to do it, because I felt like it would be subtly revolutionary. So could you say a little bit more about what you feel that benefits and challenges?
So I need a lot of feedback, like at all times. I drink a lot of coffee. I have my ADHD is still on Medicaid. And this is the other thing, even the perception of another autistic person, you were like, are you okay? But actually, I'm just trying to concentrate because we've gone slightly off tangent to what we planned. And I'm trying to speak and process at the same time. So what I need currently is more input into my body to make sure I can do that. So I've got my spiky things out because that really does help me concentrate and think and process like multiple things quite quickly. And that's why. And before I used to have my spiky and very openly stimmed, I used to do things that were quite, well, you could class them within self-harm. Do you know what I mean? I used to sit and like bite my knuckles and things like that. So I was getting that feedback because I need a lot of feedback, but in a way that it's just realistically, I was aware I was hurting my body, and I went from an acceptance to I was hurting my body to wanting to change that and find like different routes. So I'm not doing that, and I'm also not modeling that, because part of this, I get a lot of feedback when I deliver training about my open stimming and how people feel validated then to do it themselves. And I tell you what, there's nothing like going to training in the school where they're all like trying to hide, like playing with bits of blue tack in their pocket, or like if you mention it, they go and like literally practically hide under the table, because they have that level of shame around it. And I think we need to be, for those of us who are on Acceptance Plus, modeling it. Do you know what I mean? Because it encourages others to do it, because so many people have so many layers of shame around their identity, and shame and acceptance are on those different ends of that spectrum, you know. I've got this really lush friend, and I love her, and she wears sunglasses inside all the time. But if I ever saw her out and about, she would then take them off to talk to me, and I could see that they're uncomfortable. And I'm like, well, hi, why are you doing that? Put them back on. And like, do you know what I mean? I want people to have and accept that they, you know, the acceptance that they need things, and then that acceptance plus to do it, you know, to own what you need and do what you need.
And I now feel validated in my mostly not having reached acceptance plus, I would say, to nonetheless at my kind of oscillating acceptance level, to do this performance where I'm kind of openly stimming myself and inviting audience members who might feel comfortable to do something, to do so, because it is about stopping repressing bodily habits through shame. I was sat in an audience the other day and I was kind of gently sort of tip tapping as I do, you know, tapping out a gentle rhythm to myself. And I was like, oh yeah, why am I doing it so subtly and gently? Well, it's just a habit. Looking around at other audience members to see if I could see anyone like holding, like nearly doing it or holding something in. And actually where I was sat, as it happened, I couldn't see anyone, but I often can. So is it that we are moving through a world, we're living in a world where, again, we're just to talk a bit about our particular neurodivergent privilege. You know, we both live in the northeast of the UK in these current times, a reasonably open, safe place to be publicly, as far as places can be, let's say. But are we saying in this space even that we move about in, that there are people holding in and repressing a lot of bodily, energetic, habitual stuff that they ideally would be letting out, but they can't because there isn't at this moment an acceptance even of slightly unusual stimming bodily habits.
Yeah. And there's that stat, isn't there, that it's about ADHD young people particularly, that they will have had 20,000 criticisms or negative feedbacks about themselves more than the other 10-year-olds in their life. So between the ages of 0 to 10, small ADHD people get 20,000 more negative comments about them than their neurotypical peers. And I can guarantee you a lot of that will be around fidgeting and stimming and self-soothing and interrupting and just all of that. And how can we convince young people who are diagnosed, who maybe even have the awareness of their diagnosis, into that process of acceptance while they're getting that feedback, which will be from adults? You know, it's unlikely to be that many from children.
So partly, and I don't know where April comes into this, because I'm not feeling that near, because you know, as in, until Autism Acceptance Month has many more voices than you know, just yours.
Definitely not just me.
Well, but there's not. Yeah, there are actually saying things like what you've just said. Then there's something about this is almost like ground level, grassroots, in your body acceptance. And actually, if it's not there, and in fact, if you're in an academy school that's telling you literally how to sit, where to look, and repress all bodily things, then it's all very well saying accept someone's autism diagnosis on paper, but if we can't even accept the most basic being differences between all humans, we've got quite a long way to go, really.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's why it's so important this month and every month that we listen to the actually autistic people, and this month if you follow people who are maybe using that actually autistic hashtag, or you know that they're autistic content creators, if you're using, you know, if they're putting out work for free, this month, consider other ways that you can support them, consider ways that you can share their material, and get the voice that we need through April. There's so many people in the autistic community, and then so many intersectionalities within our community. There is enough content out there to share with everyone for a full month. Thanks for tuning in to Neurotypicals Don't Juggle Chainsaws. We're so glad you joined us today to explore the fascinating world of neurodivergence with your hosts, me, Nick King.
And me, Kate Fox. If our conversation sparked a thought, a question, or even a smile, don't keep it to yourself. Drop us a line at hello@neurotypicals-don't-juggle-chainsaws.co.uk or visit our website, neurotypicals-don't-juggle-chainsaws.co.uk, to write in. We'd love to hear from you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, consider leaving us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast platform.
Until next time, keep embracing the unique ways you juggle the chainsaws of life.